what is a wug? So what is a wug? So I get asked this all the time, and the reason I get asked this all the time is because I have a little toy 3D printed wug on my desk at work, and I have a giant stuffed wug in my apartment, and I have t-shirts that have wugs on them, so I really like wugs. So yeah, so people ask me, well, what is a wug? Why is it so cool? And this is a wug. So it's a little bird-like creature. It's got 2 legs, an eye. They're usually blue, and they're sort of the mascot of linguistics. They were invented by Jean Berko-Gleason as part of a study in 1956. Jean Berko-Gleason. And not 1956, 1958. So, Jean Berko-Gleason, 1958, invented this thing called the wug test. And the wug test is basically, you take a group of young children and you show them a bunch of pictures and you ask them a bunch of questions and you learn about where they are in their state of language acquisition. So it's not like you go from being born to speaking full sentences like I am, then you have to learn words and pieces of words and sounds and different things. And one of the tests goes like this. So you're shown a wug, and the experimenter says, "This is a wug." And the child says, "Okay." And then you show another wug, and you say, "Now there are 2 of them." There are 2 what? What would you call 2 of them? And presumably, if the child's older than 2.5 or 3, they will typically say, well, there are 2 wugs. And that's it. That's what the wug test is. It's basically showing that the child has mastered the plurals of English. And it's really interesting because children overwhelmingly, by the age of 2.5 or 3, say wugs. They don't say, oh, there's a wug. A lot of languages do plurals that way with reduplication. I just say the thing twice for it to mean more than one. They don't say, oh, there's 2 wuggin. I have 1 child, 2 children, 1 ox, 2 oxen. Why not say 1 wug, 2 wuggin? They don't say there are 2 wuggi. I have cactus, cacti, platypus, platypi. They don't say wug, wuggi. They say wugs. And that's really cool. This plural, this way of forming plurals is the most common, the most regular. So you would assume a new word is going to be regular. You don't assume that a word is going to be irregular. And the other thing that's really cool about this is that this proves that kids didn't memorize it. If you have a word like, let's make this a different color. If you have a word like chair, and I say, okay, here's a chair, now here's another one, there are 2 what? If the kid says, well, there's 2 chairs, well, so what? The kid could have memorized that. The kid could have heard, oh, well, honey, go pull out all the chairs for dinner, or look at how many chairs are in this movie theater, or whatever it is. You hear the word chair and you hear the word chairs, and so you could have memorized that plural. But the reason why the wug test is so cool is because no one's ever heard of a wug, unless you're a linguist, or unless you're you watching this video right now. But up until now, you'd never heard of a wug, and so you didn't know that the plural of wug was wugs. But you did because you know how to make regular plurals in English, assuming that you're a native English speaker or a very competent second language learner. You know that the plural is you add this little S morpheme. And yeah, that's basically the wug test in a nutshell. There's all kinds of cool, more complicated things that we can get into about the phonology and the morphology of plurals and how plurals get complicated with voicing and voicelessness and different kinds of consonants. But yeah, that's what the basics of the wug test is. You have Jean Berko-Gleason, 1958, and then in the wug test, proved that children don't memorize plurals. They memorize these rules for making plurals, and they can see a wug and then see 2 of them and know that it's wugs. And that's the wug test.